Have you ever felt just completely surrounded, caught up in a storm of injustice and lies? I think we all have. It's a feeling that's all too common. But what's amazing is that thousands of years ago, a king facing betrayal and conspiracy forged a response, a powerful prayer that has echoed through the ages. Today, we're going to unlock the timeless strategy found right here in Psalm 5. I mean, that's a question that hits close to home for just about everyone, right? That feeling of being totally overwhelmed by deceit, it's universal. What's incredible is that this ancient psalm offers more than just comfort. It actually lays out a powerful spiritual strategy for finding your footing in a world that so often feels broken. So here's our game plan. We're going to start right in the heart of the crisis, with David's desperate plea. Then we'll explore the foundation of his hope, his whole understanding of God's character. From there, we'll see how that leads to this fierce condemnation of evil before discovering the psalm's ultimate promise, a divine shield. And then we'll pull it all together with some real practical lessons for today. All right, so we're diving straight into the middle of the storm. The psalm doesn't kick off with some big, confident declaration. No, it starts with a raw, almost gut-wrenching cry for help. You have to remember, David was a king who was constantly navigating political conspiracies and betrayal. So he turns to the only place he believes he can be truly heard. You can just feel the urgency in these words, can't you? This isn't some polite request. It's a lament, a deep cry. David is laying his raw anxieties out before God, and in doing so, he shows us that the foundation of a powerful prayer is just brutal honesty. He's not pretending to have it all together, not at all. But here's the thing. David's hope, it isn't just wishful thinking. It's anchored in something solid, his deep understanding of God's fundamental character. This is the bedrock of his faith. And it's this very bedrock that forces us to ask a really challenging question. And there it is. A major theological puzzle for so many people. If God is the literal definition of love, how can he also possess hate? The psalm doesn't shy away from this at all. It forces us to confront this apparent contradiction. And, early Christian thinkers like Augustine of Hippo offered a really crucial distinction to help make sense of it. This distinction is the absolute key to resolving that tension. See, according to Augustine, God's love is for his creation, for every single person made in his image. His hatred, on the other hand, isn't directed at the person, but at the sin, that destructive act of turning away from goodness. It's a battle against the choice, not the chooser. So what this all boils down to is this. The God of this psalm is fundamentally incompatible with injustice and falsehood. He just can't coexist with it. And it's this absolute integrity that gives David the confidence to bring his case before a perfectly just judge. So once you grasp that God's character is all about truth, it naturally leads us right into the central conflict. David draws this really sharp line in the sand between the path of his enemies, a path of lies, and the path of truth he's trying to follow. Wow. Now, that is a stark and uncompromising statement. Of all the possible sins out there, the psalm places this special, almost terrifying emphasis on falsehood. It's not presented as some minor flaw. It's something God is said to utterly detest. And that's a totally fair question, right? In our world, we often try to minimize dishonesty with terms like white lies or bending the truth. But the psalmist and leader thinkers like Metropolitan Arseny, they see it as something far, far more spiritually catastrophic. So why? Why the huge deal? Okay, so let's break it down. First off, a lie is a direct assault on the very nature of God, who is defined as truth itself. Second, it aligns the speaker with the father of lies, the source of all deception. Third, it corrupts our own soul. It distorts that divine image within us. And finally, it hurts other people who are also created and protected by God. So you see, it's not just one thing. It's a multi-layered spiritual disaster. But after all that intensity and focus on judgment, the psalm makes this beautiful pivot. It turns from the fate of the wicked to the profound hope and protection available to those who choose a different path. The psalmist suggests there's a kind of poetic justice to it all. The downfall of the deceitful isn't just random. They get trapped by their own schemes. Their own lies become their undoing. But for those who take refuge in God, the outcome is the complete opposite. And this right here, this is the emotional heart of the psalm's promise. The right response to God's protection isn't fear or quiet solemnity, but an explosion of joy. It's that deep, unshakable happiness that comes from knowing you are secure, you're seen, and you're defended by the ultimate source of truth. And here it is. This is the central, powerful metaphor of the entire psalm. God's favor, His goodwill, it's not just a passive feeling. It's an active, protective force. It surrounds the righteous, as the psalm says, as with a shield. What an image. So, what does this 3,000-year-old prayer actually mean for us, right here, right now? Let's boil its wisdom down into 4 key takeaways that we can apply directly to our lives. So, what do we take away from all this? First, pray with confidence. Don't hold back. Approach God with that same raw honesty of David. Second, understand God's character. Ground your faith not just in what you want, but in who He is, just and true. Third, choose truth. In every decision, big or small, recognize the spiritual weight of honesty. And finally, trust in the shield. Actively rely on God's favor, not for a life free of problems, but for the inner strength to face whatever comes your way. And that's really the final question the psalm leaves us with, isn't it? In a world that is just saturated with noise and misinformation, where injustice often seems to win, can this ancient idea of a divine shield still be a source of real, tangible strength? Psalm 5 makes a passionate case that the answer is yes. Thanks so much for digging into this with me.